Hi, everyone. My name is Danielle Edkins. I am an MSW student at Portland State and academic coach with the Learning Center. So today I'm really happy to lead you through this presentation on effectively communicating with professors. Beforehand, we will do a land acknowledgement. Portland State University is located in the heart of downtown Portland, Oregon in Multnomah County. We honor the indigenous people whose traditional and ancestral homelands we stand on: the Multnomah, Cathlamet, Clackamas, Tumwater, Watlala, bands of the Chinook, the Tualatin, Kalapuya, and many other indigenous nations of the Columbia River. It is important to acknowledge the ancestors of this place and to recognize that we are here because of the sacrifices forced upon them. In remembering these communities, we honor their legacy, their lives, and their descendants. So this is a slide on some of the ways to support Indigenous people in Portland and beyond. You can volunteer or donate money to help these local organizations. And then at the bottom, there are some great reading ideas, all from Indigenous authors. And if this were an in-live presentation, we would be doing a polling system, but for the sake of this presentation, we will just skip through these. So the Learning Center is a free service offered through Portland State University to all students. We have on-campus tutoring, and we are all going to be going back to campus, hopefully fall of 2021, woohoo. But also we are doing online tutoring. So if you still prefer a remote environment, they have that option. Do college success courses, academic coaching, and road to success presentations, which is what you are doing right this moment. Objectives of this workshop: we want you to be able to understand the importance of communicating with your professors and how it relates to building professionalism skills. We want you to identify common reasons for communication with your professors and best practices when doing so. I want you to feel prepared to apply these strategies to your own educational and professional practices. And that could mean in school, in the workplace, or in your own personal lives. Defining communication. Communication can be defined as the process of understanding and sharing meaning. To communicate well is to understand and be understood. And we do this in so many different ways. These are just a few. We do it verbally, through your voice, visually, by, sharing images, graphs, maps, infographics. Non-verbally is when we, the way that we move with our body language, if we're our eye contact, if we use a lot of hand gestures. And then there's also the written form of communication, such as books, websites, emails, any media. Something to note, it's really important, is the listening aspect of communication. And that means, when we're actively listening to others, it helps us to have more of an open and it helps to have more open and useful exchanges with one another. So benefits of effective communication skills. So here are some benefits too. We are building trust with others. We are preventing or resolving problems through effective communication, providing clarity and direction, creates better relationships, and that's also, comes from building trust with others, higher engagement with one another, improves productivity all around the board when we're able to communicate, collaborate, prevent, problems from happening. And then that also goes along with promoting team building. So when you're doing all of these things effectively, it promotes amazing team building, building trust, engagement, all of the things. What are some reasons you have been in communication with your professor? So this is, something to think about. Recently for me, it was, making sure that my grades were, okay for, finals. If I needed to do anything for extra credit, that's just an example of my own way of how I've communicated in the past with professors, but you can be thinking about this through this, have I been in communication with my professors? So yeah, some more reflection questions. How would you describe your current approach to communication with professors? Knowing that everything has been remote, have you been able to keep, up a communication through emails or texts? Have you been to office hours? And then also, what do you want out of effective communication? So if you feel like you're not effectively communicating, what would that look like for you? We're going to talk about some common reasons to communicate with professors. So one would be, introductions to professors. 2, asking for help or clarification. And 3 is looking for support beyond course content. And we're going to go into what these mean a little bit deeper. So when we're introducing ourselves to our professors, this could mean, at the beginning of a term or of a year, this is the first time meeting the professor, and you just wanted to shoot them, an email to introduce yourself if you are taking like a remote or online class. But in person, this could also show up in you maybe like, waiting around like for the last, 5 minutes of class, maybe saying hello to your instructor, or if there are, already designated office hours, maybe scheduling some time with your instructor to get to know them. They're people too. They have interesting things to say. And, this is also maybe good if you're not living on campus, just to kind of build that relationship. Or this is a good opportunity at the beginning of the year, the term, to explain any academic accommodations or learning preferences. So, sometimes the DRC is able to kind of handle that if you have an accommodation, but it's also good for you to reach out to your instructor and, from the get-go and just build communication with them in that way. Another reason to reach out to your professor is for when you need to ask for help or clarification. This could be you need, extra help with class content. Some things are, confusing, or you had some questions that you weren't able to ask in class. So you're gaining clarification about, or this could be gaining clarification about details of an assignment or an exam. Maybe asking for an extension. And, here it says the sooner the better, because often with teachers, I hear that, it's better to ask for, like more time than to ask for forgiveness. And so what that means is when you know that maybe you're not going to get something done on time and you're already thinking about needing, to ask for an extension, it's better to do so, a few days before, instead of asking, 11:59 at night when it's due in a minute. And that's basically you asking like, I'm sorry, I didn't get this done. Can I please have some more time? So teachers like to, know ahead of time, and they're more likely to, give you an some extra time to get the assignment done. Other reasons for asking for help is just, maybe you're needing more direct feedback on your work and you kind of want to know how you're doing. And so reaching out, asking for help or clarification. Another reason is wanting support beyond course content. So maybe you want to know about some other campus or departmental resources. Maybe you have a resource that you think would benefit other students. And so maybe you want to ask your teacher for some time before class to plug that resource. Maybe you want to build your professionalism skills, or, you want to ask for career internship advice. So maybe your teacher is in the field that you're wanting to go into, or maybe they have like background experiences in that field, and reaching out to them and, maybe asking some time to talk could be a really, great for your own professional building. This is something asking for an educational recommendation or reference is usually done when you have built that trust with an instructor and they know you. And so they can vouch for you on your academics or, your goals as a student. So when you do want to ask for a recommendation or reference, you want to know that you have built that trust with the instructor. Another reason to reach out is sudden life emergency. We all have things that happen that are unexpected. And I think it's really good to communicate that with your professors. You don't have to include any details, but just to know that, something's happening in your life and you might, need some extra time or take a break. So how has this changed in a remote environment? Hopefully, we'll get through this summer still doing remote school, and then in the fall, more people will be able to go in person. We won't really have to think about remote school anymore. But remote communication has looked more so like through emails and phone calls and texts and a lot of Zoom, right? But professors also have, drop-in hours that they're required to have once a week. So check your syllabus, and add these drop-in hours to your weekly schedule. So maybe if there's more questions that you have outside of class, then you're able to utilize that time. You want to know what preferred method of communication your teacher prefers. And this is really specific because a lot of teachers will not respond to you if you're not using the right channel to get a hold of them. So a lot of teachers use email. Sometimes you need to be more specific if they're wanting you to reach out through their PDX email or if they're using their D2L email. If they prefer text messages or phone calls. And when you do call your teacher or your text them, make sure that you are, dropping what course or class you're in and try to keep it a little bit brief. And then there are in-person or Zoom meeting options. So if your teacher, if their drop-in or office hours, like you can't make for any reason, you have kids, you have your work, it's always great to reach out to your instructor and maybe plan for, hopefully they're willing to meet with you when it works with your schedule. So in a remote environment, some things to think about are, attending class with your cameras on. It helps, put a name to a face, even if you're not going to be engaging, but at least, you're there, you're present. And then adding a picture to your D2L or Google account can also help put a name to your face. Some, teachers have so many students and it's hard to keep everyone accounted for, but if you have a face to your name, maybe that'll help with their memory. Let's talk a little bit about the stigma of asking for help. So we know that like in higher education, there's an inherent power dynamic between professors and students. And this could, prevent you from asking for help. But we don't want this to be a barrier for you. The role of the student, it's expected, it is expected that you do not know everything and you will have questions. Like, this is why you're coming to school. This is why you want to learn. You want to know more. You don't have all the answers. And that is their role as, instructors is, to be able to accommodate like your needs. And if, they're required to hold office hours and, but if you're not able to make that, then they should be able to give, different methods of contacting them or meeting with them. Because it's so important that if you do need help with curriculum or content, then they are like your first source to reach out to. And then also, like most commonly, professors view students that reach out with questions as responsible, engaged, and committed. So when you are engaged, outside of the class, or maybe even if it is in the class, but it sends the right message to your instructor that, this means something to you, you want to learn, and, yes, it sends the right message. So this is just a list of resources that are here for you at PSU. If you feel like, okay, I reached out to my professor, now what do I do? Because I'm not getting the help that I need. And so there's academic resources. Through the Learning Center, we talked about that. There's online tutoring and academic coaches. The Writing Center is a wonderful place to go when you're struggling with, your essays, or you don't know where to start, or you need more clarification on what what is required of you. The library is an amazing resource for when you need to do research. There's your academic advisors can give you support and help you find more resources, the Career Center. And then there's some more specific resource centers such as, the DRC, the QRC, the Veterans Resource Center, TRIO Student Support Services, Cultural Resource Center, so many. SHAC is the Center for Student Help and Counseling. And, if you feel like you're having a mental health crisis, school's really challenging right now, they have a crisis line that you can call and speak with a counselor. And then I would just recommend, if you're able to, head to the campus rec, check it out, blow some steam off with some, a good workout, take a break. It's so good for your mental health, your physical health. So now we're going to talk a little bit about the format of writing an email to a professor. There are 5 things to think about. In your email subject line, you always want to include the course number and the section number so that your teacher knows what course to refer to. Sometimes they teach multiple courses and maybe you have, they have similar students in their class. So it's always good to be specific. And then also in the subject line, I would include maybe a little bit, like a little word, 1 to 2 words about what the email is going to be about to kind of get their attention. So the salutation is the fancy name for like, how do you say hello? And you want to be respectful and use their last name. So if you don't have, if they didn't specify that, you can call me Greg or, please call me Professor Randall. You just want to always, if they haven't specified to use their first name, then always, be professional and respectful and say, professor, and then use their last name. And then background info. So in the beginning of the email, you want to say, mention how they know you and how you know them. So, hello, my name is, Danielle Edkins. I am a student in your, SW555 class. And this is especially important for large introductory level courses when, teachers or professors have, hundreds of students. So you want to be specific, use your last name, and give them a little bit of background about who you are and how you know them. And then what is the purpose of the message? So what is the reason for your email? You want to, get to the point, ask the question or give the update, and then give options for how you intend to solve the problem. So if this is something about, we're going to show examples in a little bit, but if this is something about needing an extension, you'll, want to ask for the extension, but also give some, like a time frame or some possible dates that you could have it done. And then your signature. I look forward to hearing from you. I look forward to your reply. Best regards. Some people do say thank you, but if you're asking for something, then at the end I would encourage you not to use thank you, because then that's also basically you just saying that you will be doing it anyway. So some examples. So this is a question about an essay. So you can see in the subject line, they included the course and the section number, and then they wrote question about essay. So they told the professor what it was going to be about. Dear Professor Fiji, I'm a student in your Introduction to Political Science class. So they didn't use their name, but it'll show on the bottom anyway. So this is okay. And then, so they got right to the point. I have a question about the essay due next Thursday, not able to find the answer on the syllabus. A lot of times teachers will ask you, well, have you looked at the syllabus? So make sure that you're doing your due diligence, your research before you even contact your professors. And then I look forward to hearing from you. Pro tip, create an email signature. Yes, this is something that you can do. You can Google this. It's super easy to do through Gmail. Is to set up your own signature. Usually want to, kind of specify what program you are in, or maybe if you're involved in any other things on campus. This is an example of an email request an in-person meeting. So again, course number and section. Dear Professor Fiji, again, I'm a student in your Introduction to Political Science class. And then would like to review an exam with you, time we can meet later this week. And so this is a good example about needing to include also times that specifically work for you. Like, it's okay to give them some options and ask if this works for you. And if not, what are your preferred times? I look forward to your reply. And then this is an example of a follow-up email. So follow-up emails are a little bit more brief. Still using respectful language. Follow up on my email I sent earlier this week regarding a question I have about and then the assignment. Best regards. So how will this help me beyond PSU? Whoops, I skipped that. Okay, sorry. For the sake of this, I will move forward. So benefits of exposure. So we know how difficult and maybe it makes you a little bit anxious to reach out to your instructor for asking for help or maybe to ask for any of the resources on campus. But when you expose yourself, to difficult situations, it gets easier and easier until it becomes a habit. So thinking about it of like gaining muscle, right? Like your brain is gaining these, like when you work out continuously and you have a routine, you're gaining these muscles. The more that you expose yourself, to, maybe writing a difficult email to your instructor or, asking for help or asking for an extension when you're nervous about it, like you're building those muscles and you're gaining those skills. But on the opposite hand, like when you consistently avoid an uncomfortable situation, you're building a habit of avoidance. And we know that avoidance habits are tougher to break. So the longer that you think about like dreading, asking for help or emailing an instructor or texting an instructor, the more you're going to be comfortable in that avoidance and the less you will be using your effective communication skills. But I promise, that when you do start, reaching out to your instructors or maybe even like doing an introductory, to your instructors, it becomes easier and easier and it becomes more of a habit. So there are some steps for exposing yourself to these, these experiences. Like you want to plan ahead, set a time frame of when you want to have completed a task, mark it on your calendar or like set a phone reminder. So, say I'm really having a hard time in this class. I want to talk to Professor Blank. Like I'm going to set some time aside so that I can, draft an email or maybe look at my calendar and find some times that'll work that I can suggest to meet up. And then the prep. So you want to identify a goal, create a draft, envision the outcome. And this could look like, I need an extension on my assignment. So, creating the draft would be like find out what channel, you need to communicate with your professor, envision the outcome. So what is it that you're wanting to get from this? You're wanting to get the extension in the example. And then perform, make it a habit like we talked about. The more you expose yourself to these uncomfortable situations or new situations, the easier it is going to be the next time you do it. You're going to be a pro. And then also, if you need more support, we at the Learning Center have academic coaches that you can meet with. And, academic coach is a one-on-one service. It helps you, learn to build skills in self-management, study strategies, motivation, and more. If you want more information, you can email us directly at mycoach@pdx.edu, or you can visit the Learning Center's academic coaching website. And on there, it has all the coaches' bios that you can read through to find out which coach would be the best for you. And this would be the time for questions. And like I said, if you have any questions, go ahead and contact the Learning Center. The survey references just to show. But I thank you everyone for your time. It was a pleasure to be able to lead you through this presentation, and I hope you came away with some great new skills.